person. All right. All right. Good morning. Oh, actually, good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I have a huge panel today. I'm so happy to have all of you here. I am Juan Castillo, assistant principal here at Pasquotank County High School. And I know probably you guys there, the panel, we have a panel today to discuss really simultaneous teaching. And these folks here have had experience already this year, and we want to kind of get their perspective on that. So let me kind of just introduce a little bit, because I don't know how you all see yourself. So Ms. McDaniels, just if you want to let us know a little bit.
So Mika McDaniels, I am the high school school level instructional coach, and we are getting ready to go to simultaneous teaching at the high school. And we know that our middle schools and our elementary schools have been doing this a lot longer than we have. So we want to learn from them at the high school level. So we're interested to hear your input.
Thank you. And Ms. Lee, we'll go with you, just the way it is on my screen. Oh, you're muted.
I'm Stacey Lee, and I teach third grade at Northside Elementary.
Awesome. Ms. Bright?
Hi, I'm Caroline Bright. I teach first grade at Northside Elementary School.
Ms. Griffin?
Hi, I'm Millie Griffin, and I teach seventh grade at Elizabeth City Middle School.
Awesome. We'll go to Mr. Tate.
Hello, my name is Mr. Tate. I teach music at Northside Elementary School.
Awesome. Then we go to Ms. Ferguson.
Hello, I'm Miss Ferguson. I teach math at Elizabeth City Middle School.
All right. Mr. Only.
Hey, I'm Jordan Only. I teach health and PE at Elizabeth City Middle School.
Thank you. Ms. Meads. Ms. Meads, sorry.
Hi, I'm Heather Meads. I'm a third grade teacher at Northside Elementary.
Excellent. And then Mr. Herrick.
And my name is Nathan Herrick. I am the instructional coach at Elizabeth City Middle.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much again for all of you for being here today. So let me begin with one of the first things. How, and I know this may be an extended question, but how do you look to plan, and just in a kind of somewhat simplified manner, for both simultaneous, for the kids virtual, the kids face-to-face? What is your initial stage of planning when it comes to that? What was your thought process when you guys began? And I'll start, if anybody wants to jump in, I don't want to, if I want to call on anybody, so.
Well, I guess for our unit, one of the things that really helped us out was that we had been working on some instructional units, which is pretty much some lesson plans that we were putting together and making sure that we had certain specific things embedded in there. And one of those things was technology. So when we jumped in, we kind of had those already there that we could use. And that kind of alleviate a lot of the stress of, planning and figuring out everything else. So that helped us.
Okay. And anybody else want to?
Sure. I would say making sure that your Canvas page is instructionally well laid out. So your modules should probably match a unit, and your pages should probably match a lesson, so that it's laid out in a way that makes sense for students. Mm-hmm. And then I try to not have a lot of things for students to download. So trying to make your lesson and your assignment into one sort of downloadable Canvas link, so there's not a lot of places for them to go.
Gotcha. So it pretty much all of you are using Canvas?
Yeah, at Elizabeth City Middle School, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else, and then I'll go to one more question. As far as how you begin your planning.
I think one thing to make sure when you're coming back to, part of me wanted to go face-to-face, use paper, pencil, and kind of change everything, but keeping it the same. Don't come back and try to change things. Let your face-to-face kids be virtual essentially in the classroom until you can gradually release that a little bit and get comfortable with how to teach and use things for the face-to-face students and still accommodate the virtual students with the same activities and the same assignments.
Okay.
And going off of what Ms. Mead said, I think it's important to think about the materials that your remote students have available, because sometimes you might want to teach something in the classroom, but you might not necessarily be able to follow through with that with your remote kids. So that's important to think about when planning as well.
That's true. It's very true. Very true. So once you begin I'm kind of probably going to go through the process, of a day, but once you begin or you're just about to begin, do you maybe have get the kids in the classroom started and then work on the kids in virtually, or do you literally do that simultaneously? Or
I'll jump in for PE. I'll jump in for PE real quick. We tend to get the kids online started first while our kids in the gym are seated and waiting for us to transition to the kids that are in face-to-face. So we use a team teaching effort and switch ours over to one of our teachers for the virtual students, while the rest of us two are facilitating face-to-face. So we kind of have it easier in that aspect.
Okay, interesting. I like good teamwork.
I'll jump in for music. Actually, a little bit, it's almost similar, but a little bit of the opposite. I have a lot of my virtual students sometimes take a few minutes to get into the class. So I'll start, because we're going room to room, I'll start an activity with my students in the classroom while I wait about 5 to 10 minutes or so for all the virtual students to come in. Because I found if I started right on time, I'm probably going to have to re-give my lesson and re-give all my instructions all over again. So
Mr. Tate, when it comes to the kids, are the kids actually coming into your classroom, or do you go to like a...
I've been traveling to their classroom.
Your music in a cart.
Yes.
I did art in a cart for 2 years. That's a thing. Awesome. How about you? Some of you, like in the primary grades, as you guys have most of yours been face-to-face?
I think for me, it's getting my face-to-face kids going first. Now it's a little bit different, I guess, on the elementary level. We have to serve them breakfast in the classroom, and we're getting all of that going. So our virtual students actually don't even sign in until a little bit later in the morning. Since we've transitioned and been doing this for a while, we open up our Google Meet so the kids can sign in and have those morning meetings with us if they want to. But they have a set time that they join in. And so we run into the face-to-face, you have more behaviors, you have more, things that you have to manage as far as the classroom management goes. So once we get them rolling with what we're doing for the day, our virtual students are joining in and they just pick up right when they come in.
Gotcha.
Yes, and I also I open up in the morning to my remote students and face-to-face for review. So I do have a couple of remote students that choose to come on in the morning, and they just come on. I have my mic on so they hear the morning announcements, and then we start review right after the morning announcements. They hear the pledge and they just kind of jump in, and then they have reach classes, and then they come back to me. So we're doing it at the same time. We've got the remote kids on at the same time, face-to-face. And they just kind of know when you're talking directly to them, they know just to kind of catch up in the middle of class. So they do a great job at that.
That's awesome. And I think something to be said is really to each, whatever works best for you. Because, somebody here said, face first, virtual first, and then simultaneous. That's good. And which leads me to the question is, how did you, because, at the beginning of the year, we've always taught, you create your routines, your procedures. So how different, some of you can talk about how you set up these routines now when you had to deal with face-to-face and virtual at the same time.
So one of the routines for me is first thing for homeroom or for class is about 5 minutes of SEO. So they know that when they come in, there's always going to be a check-in up there. How are you feeling today? What's your zone of regulation? Are you yellow, blue, green, that kind of thing? So I have that up there. So I leave my Zoom meeting open. And so as they come in, that's the first thing they'll see. They know they check in the chat. One of the things that help with the face-to-face students is whatever is going on my screen, I project it so they feel as though, they're a part of, everything that's going on as well. So that's one thing I use for the routines. Something that helped me a lot in maneuvering everything is I find a student that I can really trust, and I might assign that student as a co-host, maybe to let people in from the waiting room. So it takes a little bit off me if I need to address a student that's face-to-face while kids are coming in.
And I guess I'll ask, sorry, Was somebody gonna go ahead?
I was going to say, since October, we've had different stages of different kids coming in, depending on when the waiting list is available. And what happens is I tell my students that are face-to-face that, hey, you guys know the routine. So when someone comes in new, I look to them to help remind them what they're supposed to be doing because they're new. And so it's just been about 3 or 4 different stages of kids coming in. And I just say, I rely on you guys to set the tone.
To kind of piggyback on what Ms. Ferguson said, even at the elementary level, I started, when we came back, I started with one girl in my class and I had all boys with them. So I kind of gave her a job just because she felt like she was kind of by herself. So her job was to monitor my virtual students. If I got pulled away for anything or I needed to go help a group, she would come and kind of sit here and facilitate for me or join in with that group if I needed her to. So that was a really helpful thing to kind of, if you can find a student that you can trust to do that, it's very helpful.
And actually, that was actually going to be a question later on. And just to throw it out there, have you all given kids duties, jobs, to help with the kid, monitoring the kids virtually or things like that? Ms. Meads, just talk to anybody else. How did you kind of set that up?
I also, for my virtual students, I guess I give them jobs too that they know. When we put them in breakout rooms, we try to let them work as groups too, because our face-to-face kids, are moving more towards that as working in groups. So giving them leadership roles online so they know they can keep everybody on task still. I know we did that probably when we were all virtual, but more so now because they're a little bit more independent at times throughout the day.
And then my next thing would be, how did you differentiate your expectations for what's expected for the online kids compared to the kids face-to-face?
Do you mean like the coursework or like behavior-wise?
Let's start with the coursework. What's expected for them to do as far as work?
Not for us. I mean, it's pretty much the same, except, if you're remote, your digital work, and if you're face-to-face, you're more than likely going to be the paper and pencil. But they have the same amount of time they have to do on iReady. They do have to raise their hand. They do have to wait. It's the same. It's the same set of rules, whether you're remote or face-to-face, and that's worked well.
Good. Anybody else?
I agree. I think everything pretty much stays the same except for the platform that they submit their work most of the time, being Canvas or paper pencil. The only thing is kind of like what Ms. Bright talked about is sometimes I find myself like we just did measurement and our students at home didn't have a ruler or some of them didn't. So a lot of it was more me modeling for them and doing it with my virtual students. So things like that, where they might have not been able to do that at home and submit that assignment, I did it with them so that they could still see and do the activity.
That's good to hear. It's just, and actually for parents to hear that the expectations are, there's not less expectations for kids at home. That's awesome. I really like that. And then I guess, and you guys have alluded to this a little bit as you have, jobs for monitor. How do you all keep an eye? Because this is my thinking. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Is if I don't know what the ratio is, but if I have a group of students in my classroom and then the rest are condensed to a monitor, how do you, I know you also talked about the hand. How do you keep track, make sure that you're not forgetting? Because it feels like for me, like it could be easy to do.
So here at ECMS, we have Go Guardian. So I limit the number of tabs. Like during my class, they can only have 4 tabs. They can't be on their email. They can't really be on anything but Canvas and my assignment. I've sort of taught my students in Zoom if they need something. They can, virtually raise their hand if they want to, and I keep the reactions open. So if they're with me, they can do thumbs up, thumbs down. The chat only goes to me, so a lot of students feel more comfortable with that. I keep a Chromebook open, and I'm logged into Zoom too, so they can reach out just to me, and it's not projected on the screen, which if you have the resources to give a teacher a Chromebook, I would recommend that. So there are ways to do that, but definitely also being logged into Zoom on a secondary device so that you can monitor the screens and be projected is an excellent way with their cameras on.
Okay, very good. How do you, I guess, do you all use breakout rooms? How do you keep them interactive, I guess, this is the question maybe. Through what means or any kind of, I don't know if it's apps or just other, some people do polls, some people do Kahoot, some things like that. Do any of you use anything like that to keep the kids in both settings?
Definitely use Kahoots. Kahoots keep the kids engaged. They did run into the issue with having multiple devices, so they can see the Kahoot on yours and use it, but they can split their screens now and see them side by side at home. Like, they will find a way to make it work so they can play a Kahoot. And also polls recently have been a really good way to kind of get them engaged.
I know at ECMS, we've played around with Pear Deck. We have people who are using, I'm blanking on the name of the other app. It's similar to Pear Deck, Nearpod. Yeah, use Nearpod. One of the things that I've been showing some of our teachers is that, like, if you have a Google slide, because I was teaching a class and this teacher had never thought about it, making the slide shareable for all of your students. And on a tab, like, I had a big question was, how can you tell if a nation is powerful? And I had created about 20 different boxes in there. So what happens is, if I had my own class, I would have put my students' names in those boxes. So that way each student knew where their box was. And since I've shared the file with them, they actually can type right into the Google slide their answers. So we can all see it in real time with what's going on. And so that was something that he found amazing. And he started using Google Docs that he just shared among a class. And they can type their answers right in there, because we know some students are reluctant to speak, in front of the microphone. Another thing that I did when we were looking at a picture, we wanted to diagram a picture. We wanted to pick it apart. So instead of asking them to just speak out or tell me, I made a bunch of arrows and I had them move the arrows to point at something on this picture that they thought was important, that they thought we should talk about. So that ended up getting about half of the class. And this was a class I was just subbing in for. About half of the class participated in that. Plus I could see who moved the arrows around. Because it shows you who's moving, who's interacting with the material on the screen. And that was all just done through a basic Google slide. So that's one option, or a couple options that we've used.
Jamboard is also a really good way to do that as well. Our guidance counselor has done some sessions with our students, and she's used Jamboard, and it's very similar to Google Slides. And each kid can put a sticky note and move it around, and it has their name on there, and it's interactive. We've also used it for small groups and doing word studies with virtual kids, so that they can still manipulate and move letters and words to do small groups through breakout rooms.
Gotcha. I guess Mr. Tate, Mr. Only, since you guys are more, I guess not core, but how do you guys, with sometimes the kids at home don't have the materials, how do you guys handle that?
Okay. One of the things that I like to do is I like to keep things simple. So if I'm doing a rhythm activity, I'll have them, they can get like 2 pencils or 2 markers they can use, or things that I think that you can find around the home, boxes, pots, and I'll demonstrate it myself how you can just use the same thing for my rhythms. But I try to keep everything simple, so I won't have maybe the in-person students playing a drum if I know that they don't have drums at home. I will try not to do that.
Gotcha. How about you, Mr. Only?
I'll say for PE, what we've kind of been doing is the kids that are home are still responsible for participating in the warm-up activities, which don't require any materials other than your body weight. So that's what we do for them. And then they kind of transition. Our team teaching effort works really good, because then they transition with one of our other PE teachers into the other part of the lesson, which will be the health content, because we have health and PE to fall back on. So that kind of helps us out big time. But the team teaching effort really works for us.
And sorry, one more thing. Also, wherever I get a chance, I try to have my virtual students interact with my traditional students if I can.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to ask. Was
it helps
is there a
them.
way to have like my kids that are here in the classroom? Do you partner them up? Can you do group work where you bring in those virtual kids? How does that actually work out?
You might want to. Well, I'll tell you what I do music-wise, and then you can ask one of the classroom teachers. That might be able to help you better. But I'll have an activity where they'll write a rhythm. So the in-person students will write the rhythm on like a dry erase board, and then they'll come to my computer and show it to my virtual students so they can see it. And then one of the virtual students will raise their hand and they can try to clap the person's rhythm back to them. And it's almost like they're playing each other's music. So that they seem to enjoy it. And when I can get them to interact with each other, the lesson goes a lot better. Anytime I can get them sort of interacting with each other, it's a lot better. I don't have kids just looking at the screen like this or feeling like they're not a part of it.
And depending on what activity you're doing, we have had the face-to-face kids actually log into the meeting so that the people at home can see them. And then we put it up on the smart board and so they can see all the kids at home along with their own faces. So that's a great way as well. If you do breakout rooms, they're still in the Google Meet. And so they can see each other and interact with one another.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I didn't think about that. So for some of you, when the kids that are face-to-face, in a sense, their computers are not in the Google Meets. They're just there. They might have it open to, if they need to access Canvas or whatever it is, but some of you, they may not be logged on to the actual, to see the other students. That's only almost on a need basis.
Yes. I always, throughout the entire day, have my kids projected on the smart board, and that way they can see them. But if we do an activity, then they would then get their Chromebooks out and join them. But they're not actually. You'll get a lot of feedback at times.
See, that's good.
Be prepared for it. It's going to happen. You're going to have them unmute their microphones or turn their sound on. Typically, what our kids do is they turn their sound. If they do, like, let's say I'm doing a poll in Google Meet and I want them to sign in and do it with everybody. They have to turn their sound off and mute their microphones, and they hear the virtual students through my projector. But if they do unmute or turn their sound on, you'll get feedback. If they have their headphones in, then that's a little bit different because the sound is contained there and you won't get the feedback. But be prepared for feedback. It's going to happen and it's going to be loud, and then you got to figure out who it is to get it fixed. But
I also keep a Chromebook open in the back of my room with my Google Meet open all day long. I keep it muted. I keep the sound off. But then that way the kids at home, if they pop in, they can see the entire classroom and see what's going on and not just see me. So they can see their classmates working at their desk, or they can see that we're eating lunch. Oh, I don't need to be in my Meet right now. So that definitely helps the remote students feel included.
Okay, I like that.
At the school, all of our students are on their Chromebooks because a number of our teachers don't switch classes, or the students, don't switch classes. So what we end up having is teachers teaching with their home room, but they're teaching a different block. So all of our students are on their Chromebooks all day long. And that's the model that we've gone to. I don't know if one of the classroom teachers wants to speak on that a little more. Because I know the elementary mentioned you guys have a lot of in-person who aren't on Chromebooks. Ours spend the entire day on the Chromebook.
Do you see any fatigue for the middle school teachers in the afternoon with the kids being online as long as they've been?
That has been definitely a point that we've struggled with, trying to figure out how do we manage this. Because, by the end of the day, you go home, your eyes hurt. You're mentally fatigued from staring at a screen all day. One of the issues that we run into is, we've got some parents who say, why is my kid in school if they're just learning from the computer? And so the response to that is, we're trying to manage, teaching while managing the health concerns of everybody around us, students, the faculty. When everybody goes home, anything that gets transmitted at school goes home. So we're trying to manage all these things. And when we explain that to the parents, most of them are more understanding to the fact that, we've got this that no one's ever experienced before trying to teach like this. And so the parents have tended to be very generous towards us, but we definitely try to keep some kind of interactive activities, like we're actually incorporating now moving our electives. So while they're in class for the core subjects at the desks, typically the same room because students aren't moving, we do have them getting up and moving to the electives. And Mr. Only, maybe you could tell them how you see the students responding to just that little bit of movement.
So I also here's where I can see it the best. I also deal with car riders in the afternoon, and they all come to the gym. And before, it seemed like the kids were scared to kind of even talk to each other. Now it seems like since they've been transitioning with each other and making some more friendships and socializing a bit more, they seem more lively at the end of the day, from my perspective.
Well, I know we have to have a lot of brain breaks if they are sitting for a long period of time. We got to get them up, get them moving before they're ready to get focused again. So those help out a lot.
Now, I know we're talking about different ages here, but I guess one of my questions that popped up, and I'm great, is what do you see as the limit, or like roughly for kids just being either live before you have those brain breaks? You know what I mean? Before you figure like there needs to be some sort of transition or something for, let's say, elementary folks. What seems to be like the top of like continuous, learning, I guess.
I'm thinking 30 minutes.
30
I mean,
minutes.
there are some who have more stamina and can stay engaged and keep going, but after 30 minutes, you'll start seeing cameras get turned off from our virtual students. But even the face-to-face students, I mean, they need a break after that. But typically, we have a break built in to our schedule every 30 minutes or so.
How is that break? What do you guys do?
Well, it just the way our schedule is, we have reach, so we have our morning session, then we have our music, art, and PE. So that's kind of like their break through then. Then we teach a reading lesson, and then we have a snack break so they can get up and move and eat their snack. Then we do math. Then we have the lunch. So it kind of works out with our schedule. They have some independent work time, and then we have recess at the end of the day. So they kind of spend the last part of their day, outside. So our breaks are built in to where it really works out, where we don't have to be so intentional about making sure they're there because they're built into our schedule.
Gotcha. Yeah, and see, that's the thing we're looking at. We're looking at about 87-minute blocks. So that's where I know we can't go 87 minutes. We figured right now about an hour live, and that's, continuous. And then about the other, 27 minutes or so asynchronous. But I feel like we got to break that 60 minutes somehow. So what about some of the other elementary folks? Was it about the same, or?
I have first grade, so it's definitely not as long as Miss Meads' class, but we typically will do our whole group instruction, and before we transition to our independent or guided work, we will have a break. So any possible transition that we have in the classroom, we try and let them get their wiggles out.
Gotcha. Okay. What about middle schooler folks?
They're definitely ready to throw those paper towels away at the ends of class after they sanitize their tables. They're definitely ready every hour. I think anytime during a lesson where they can take a minute or two break and they can stretch or you can include some movement, I think they definitely appreciate it.
Okay, that's good. I mean, we do it when, we just came back from a hour PD. We were minute 45. We were getting ready to. Okay, well, good. I don't know, Ms. McDaniels, do you have any?
Yeah, my question is about the lunch. Can you tell us how the lunches are being provided to the kids and how that goes? And we know they all have to wear the mask except for the time that they're able to eat. Are the lunches delivered, or y'all going to the cafeteria? How does lunch look for kids?
For the elementary, they're delivered to our classroom. So the computer carts, I guess we have an abundance of them, some older ones maybe. And the cafeteria will give us we put our lunch count in Power School. before 9 o'clock. So however many kids we have for the day, we put our lunch count in, and they will send that many down on your cart right outside your door. And then we just have the kids sanitize. They come get a cart or a tray off the cart. And then we normally try to put something on the smart board for them. It just helps them focus on something so they're not talking, because that is a struggle for them. I mean, they want to socialize when they eat. So we normally try to put something on the smart board just so they can watch something. And then once they're done, their masks go back on and they clean up. But they have about 15 minutes to eat once they're all sanitized and lunch is passed out.
Okay, good. What about middle school? Do you all get your lunch delivered, or kids go through a line?
So we had the similar strategy that Ms. Meese mentioned, but now we're experimenting with the kids transitioning to the cafeteria to collect their lunch. So we have a system where, they follow a particular path for different grade levels, just to collect and, make a U-turn, come back up, just so that they get moving.
Yeah, and we do it similar where the teachers have to fill out how many lunches they need. We were trying to do it electronic for a while, and that worked a little bit, but there would come issues where people would accidentally forget. They'd fill out the form later, and then the cafeteria didn't have a lunch ready because they'd already seen and printed. So Ms. Griffith was actually holding the form just a second ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've gone with the form right there where the teachers write down the students' names. If the students aren't going to be receiving a lunch, they cross out the name and they tape it to the door I think it's by like 9:30. And so, yeah, I mean, we stagger the times we release. And we have staff in the hallways. I'm one of the hallway monitors. We're just in the hallways monitoring, making sure everyone's going one direction, following the path they're supposed to go. The teachers walk all of their students down with them, even if they brought their own lunch. And so far, that's worked really well. The cafeteria, because of those forms, know how many lunches to make. The teachers know their lunch times are staggered, 11, 11:05, 11:10. And so that's really helped us keep lunch moving quickly, and it's helped the cafeteria avoid a lot of waste.
Awesome. I guess I wanted to ask about all of you, because right now, I feel like, oh my gosh, there's so much we have to do before April 12th that I don't know if I'm ready. And I feel like all of us are so stressed out. But do you feel, and I'm sure you guys went through that, do you feel the stress was as equal as what you were faced with, or did you feel like you overstressed when it all came down to it? You know what I mean? I don't know if I make myself make sense of that question.
I think it was overwhelming at first, at least for us, because we're trying to make sure that they got their mask on and they're not getting close and that they're eating and you're crossing off, numbers. And it was a lot at first, but I can probably speak for Ms. Bright and Ms. Meads. This is like second nature now. It's just, you just do it now and it's no big deal. So you'll get into a routine and it won't be a big deal.
Yeah, that's good to know. It's good to know. Well, middle school.
All right, so the last question I have is kind of like logistics and setup. I know Ms. Mead said get ready for the feedback. Ms. Bright, you said that you set up a Chromebook at the back of the classroom. Are there any other tips that help the whole class, like wearing a mask? Are you able to talk clearly enough into the computer for all your at-home students to hear you? I mean, are there any other tips or tricks about making it look better that way?
One thing I will add, if you're using your laptop for your Google Meets, it's great to have it on a cart that will move around. That way, if you need to move your cart to show your students something else in the room, you can do that without too much hassle. And sometimes the kids in the classroom will provide a little bit of feedback for the kids at home. So sometimes we deal with that background noise, but the masks aren't an issue.
Yeah. And I guess that was roughly towards the latter part I was going to say is, if you guys have any words of wisdom, or, some do's or stay away from kind of things. And we can kind of go around if we want to start maybe with Miss Lee. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Tate.
Okay. I was just going to say, somebody knocked on my door. I was going to say, having the students sign their name in write their name on the tab helps, because a lot of times they'll cut their cameras off and then you don't know who's who, or it's hard to tell what's going on. So I try to have as many as they can to sign their name, like actually write their name when they come into the class to the tab. And I had one class, a 5th grade class, where everybody wrote like the wrong name down as like a joke. And it was crazy.
So let's go back, Miss Lee. Mrs. Lee, so any do's and don'ts?
I think Miss Griffith said something towards this earlier. When I'm sharing my smart board or sharing my screen with a video I'm showing them or whatever, I can't see the students anymore. So it's really important that you have another computer so that you can still see the students' faces on the Google Meet while you're sharing your own screen. Because if you don't, then they're not paying attention. So you definitely want another device where you can still see them.
Gotcha. Mr. Tate, I put you on silent, just so you know. Mrs. Bright.
Just go with the flow. It's definitely a learning curve, but we just do the best we can and go with the flow, and it's all going to work out.
Okay,
it's really kind of what we've learned in all of this.
Mrs. Griffith?
I try to mark attendance as they come into Zoom, like Mr. Tate said. I just mark it. I don't make them put anything in the chat because I'm apt to miss it that way. Learn what video platforms work in Zoom and which ones don't. I make a lot of videos on Loom and then play them that way so that the kids don't see the black screen of death, and they can always watch the videos that they need.
Okay. Cool. You said Loom is the video
Yes,
platform?
I like Loom. It's free. There's no length restrictions, and the videos will be there forever. I actually record lessons and stuff for kids when they're having technical difficulties, that they can go back and see those. Miss McDaniel can get you some examples of that if you need them.
Ms. Ferguson, how about you?
Well, I agree with my colleagues. Definitely give yourself some time. You're not going to get it all at once. Just allow yourself. It takes a couple days to just get used to a routine. I'll suggest, talk to the students that you have face to face to let them understand that, hey, we have a group of students online too. So, in terms of behavior, tones, be respectful because they get a lot of feedback. And in terms of assignments, I'll suggest try to keep it simple. Make sure it's clear. Your Canvas, make sure it's set up so they can see what activities you have to complete each day. And so they know exactly where to go to find their work for the day. And all the best.
Only.
My best tips is to make it relevant and communicate with your students. So if you're communicating with both groups, then they'll understand if you need to take time to facilitate something else to the other group. So communication is key and making it relevant. As they see that you care, they'll respond to you. So it's just a matter of building relationships with them and going through the trials.
Gotcha. Ms. Meads?
So I definitely agree with what everybody has said. Definitely having multiple devices set up and play with it. And I can almost guarantee that one day something is going to work perfect and beautiful, and the next day you're going to come in and it's going to be a disaster. But don't give up. Lean on your coworkers. And so listen to the kids too. It's amazing what my students have taught me, especially my virtual students, about down to playing a video. Sometimes they get feedback if you have multiple devices. So you're not hearing it, but they are hearing it, and they'll tell you exactly what you need to do to fix it. But just listen to them. And then something really neat that I have newly discovered, and it's probably been a known thing, but we use our document camera quite a bit to write so our virtual students can see. And the side-by-side view in there is great because your virtual students can see you and what you're writing at the same time. They don't have to, they can hear you through your Google Meet and see what you're writing. But if you do the side-by-side, they can see your face and what you're doing at the same time. And that's been really helpful. So they can hear you and see you at the same time while you're doing work.
Yeah, I definitely think there would be a difference, it's to be able to see folks. And I think Ms. Bright talked about having that laptop in the back. And I think that's awesome idea. Mr.
I
Harris?
have one tip that we found out the hard way, but you have a volume control on your Google Meet, but you also have a volume control on the actual computer. And sometimes when you're showing videos, you have to adjust the different types of volume. Like one goes through your speakers, through your projector. So the volume has to be set up correctly for you to watch certain videos, or the people at home won't hear.
Okay, that's good. Good. Yeah, that's something. Yeah, why can't you hear it? Very good. Mr. Herrick?
I guess the biggest piece of advice that hasn't been said yet, because there's been some amazing things so far. Give yourself grace. It's okay. Let your students know, hey, you know what? I've never done this before. If you make a mistake, own it. Instead of trying to cover it up and hide, because, a lot of times we don't want to let people know we don't know what we're doing. If the students know you don't know what you're doing, they tend to be more forgiving when you make a mistake. So give yourself grace, allow yourself to make a mistake and to say, hey, sorry, tomorrow will be better.
Listen, I hear announcements that means it's getting time here. I really do appreciate every single one of you. I'd love to one day talk to each and every one of you in depth about what you do. Again, this is going to help us out tremendously. I'll share this out with all of you also. And then it'll go, again, probably to our school webpage and things like that. But I really do thank you all, for joining us today. I've learned a lot. And I know me and Miss McDaniels. One thing I do want to do, really, just to keep this, McDaniels, can you take a screenshot of everybody here? And just let us know when. You got your mic muted, so let us know when you're going to take the shot, because I don't want to know.
All right, getting ready. All right. Ready? All right. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you again so much. Appreciate it, all of you. Y'all have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Broadcast.